Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Paranormal Tales, Real Paranormal Tales, with our guest host, Janelle.
Good evening.
And it is I, your pal, the alien.
You're just the
Yeah,
alien.
just leave it there. That's it.
We need the X-Files theme going.
So I figured, the other night we were talking about horror films that scared the crap out of us back in the day. And we came briefly across The Entity, which brought up the UCLA Paranormal Department, which they actually have. It's for paranormal and psychic research. Oh, you're leaving?
Oh no!
That good, huh?
Well, I think everybody thinks that we're
Oh,
they're
we're
on
not
the other side.
broadcasting. We're not broadcasting from the other site.
Oh, okay.
This is strictly here.
Yeah, it should be tame enough.
Yeah, well, it isn't really technically related to writing and craft and industry, so.
I'm sorry, I read that wolf as I'm a sweet transformer.
But yeah, we were talking about was the Entity, and that case that was loosely based on a case that really did occur in the 1980s, I believe, early 80s, and it was one of the most interesting of all paranormal researches because it had so much evidence go with it, including photographs, which is so rare, and actual, multiple people seeing it happen at the same time, repeated experience. Now, that whole thing at the end of the movie didn't happen. Did not happen.
That was pure Hollywood.
It was pure Hollywood, but it was based on asking the paranormal investigators, if money was no object, what would you want to do?
Yeah, and they said, okay, well, wait, money's no object? No object. Okay, well, if we had as much money as we could, this is how we would repeat the experiment. Now, it's a shame the film didn't talk about this, because I think if they had included this in the movie, it would have made it better. And what they had said was, well, the best way to test it would be to recreate the environment in every possible way. Essentially recreate that house in every way in a sealed environment with recordings and sensors, so that they could ensure that there was absolutely no outside influence. And since it was a different location, if the phenomena repeated, well, now you've got repeated phenomena in another location, and then they could start whittling down, okay, well, what about this house? What about the materials? What about the electromagnetic fields? And they could just start taking it apart bit by bit. But that whole thing about freezing it, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, that honestly, that ruined my suspension of disbelief. Like, I was totally into the movie, and then the ending with the freezing, I was like, no. Like, this just totally killed everything for me. Still a great movie, just that ending was pure Hollywood.
Indeed.
Yeah, we got into Richard Matheson, the writer who, if you have, some of us know him as the guy that wrote a lot of really good Twilight Zones, including Terror at 40,000 Feet.
And also, God, I Am Legend.
Yeah, he wrote I Am Legend. He's written a ton of things. He's written Star Trek episodes. The guy's kind of a legend in himself. What made dreams? What is it?
Dreams May Come.
Yeah, that he wrote that. But
that's a fantastic film.
Yes, it is.
Aside from his writing career, he was a lifelong member of that investigative team, mainly out of his own interest. And one of your favorite novels and movies.
My absolute favorite novel.
Actually. Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is.
And what is it?
It's Hell House.
A lot of the material in Hell House was based on the materials he'd studied, or that the department at UCLA studied. And that weird gadget at the end apparently was an idea they had if they had no money to worry about?
Well, the idea behind the he had a term for it, and I don't remember what it is. It was something highly technical and sophisticated, but in a way, it's something that the Ghostbusters would use. And what I mean by that is the idea is everything has a field, living things have an electromagnetic field. Well, entities that are still here do as well to a certain degree, and you can negate that field and therefore dissipate their ability to stay here and
That was a theory.
and clean the house. And what I liked about it in Hell House is it worked on everything. You basically nuked the house of living energy.
Oh, it stopped all electromagnetic.
Yeah.
So it'd kill you too if
yeah,
you were there.
you had to leave. So humans had to leave too. You couldn't stay in the house, which I liked. I liked that it wasn't something that was specific to ghosts, and that's why I say it's something I would see the Ghostbusters using, because proton streams would hurt a human too.
Well, real or not, as far as ghosts, doesn't matter what your opinion is. We do know the phenomena that is linked to hauntings has a direct effect on electromagnetic fields. That is not in question. That's absolutely been proven. So that's one of the more interesting parts. So yeah. And then we were going to bring up that same parapsychology department also is the one that helped in the creation of the lore and science of Ghostbusters.
Real quick, Casca, we'll get to those soon.
Wait, so the UCLA group is the one that helped with making Ghostbusters, making it look like a legit
yeah, I believe it was them and some engineers at JPL or USC, I forget which, or no, at MIT, I mean.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. They had set up a set of rules of, okay, well, if we'll assume ghosts are this, we'll assume that they interact with the environment like this. And once they set up the rules, then they said, okay, to the engineers, how do you catch one of these? And the engineers came up with technology theoretically, and that was what they decided they would need a proton accelerator and a nuclear reactor. Not sure why you would blast it with neutrinos, but that was their plan.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, they really, that first film, and I wish they had continued it in the second, that first film, they really did want to make it seem like these guys were scientists. They just weren't going to make it up, which really did a lot for the movie.
No, it did. It really brought an edge of realism to it. And you also definitely got the sense of they were testing as they built things. They didn't have a place that was, quote, safe to work out all the kinks. They were doing it by the seat of their pants because they had no other way to do it.
Oh, that scene where Egon turns on their proton packs and then backs away from them. That's their test run.
Oh man.
No, that's one thing I liked about Ghostbusters is they really did seem like they were scientists. I mean, you had Venkman, who was more like the wheeling and dealing businessman that was more, wanting to get into girls' panties. But you had Ray, who was the occult expert, and then you had Egon, who was the expert with nuclear energy and was able to come up with all their cool gadgets.
What's cool about it is really the three Ghostbusters were each kind of archetypes or stereotypes of the paranormal community, which they had to have intended that. And that being, Egon was the fringe scientist. Yeah, Ray was the true believer occultist, who was also very into Fortean stuff.
Yes.
And Venkman was a con artist.
Yeah, Venkman was the con artist.
Which are all very real stereotypes of the paranormal research field. So yeah, I mean, they did their homework for that movie.
And honestly, I thought, just to put this in there, I thought Winston is the blue collar everyman who had seen so much shit that he wasn't even fazed by going after ghosts. Like in my head canon, he was like a plumber or a trash man or something that had already seen really weird, gross shit. So catching ghosts was nothing.
Actually, mention what his background was.
He was in the Air Force.
Oh, okay. No wonder he wasn't scared. He just wanted a paycheck.
Yeah, he was a former airman, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Venkman apparently at one point had been a carnival barker, was in his history.
Yes.
That makes so much sense, especially because in the second one, it makes so much sense that he would have a show about psychics.
I thought that was the best part of the movie.
That was one of the best parts. It was a lost opportunity to really build upon things. I mean, come on. He could have used his show to get the word out about what was going on, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
You know, and then, and honestly, I did totally buy Ray making an occult bookstore.
All right. So now we get to the rest of the show. And by the way, we only have 6 people. Now, keep in mind, tell the other people who don't know, we're not on the other channel. This is just here. And let other people know we're on live, because I really do think this is an anemic following right now of only 6, unless YouTube's lying to us. Now for the true life stories. And this came up because Monday, the Entity case came up. And I had watched a documentary on what they had experienced. I saw their photographs and they described it. And as much as I honestly believe whatever was happening in that house was centered around the mom, there was something about her causing it. And often that is the case in a haunting, and often it is someone who wants attention or is trying to cry for help. No, I think something very strange was going on in that house that was not of this earth, or it was paranormal. And the part that really got me was the photographs and the things they described I'd seen myself. And that's why I didn't want to get into it last Monday, was that my own experiences, the things that I saw looked a lot like their photographs and their descriptions, which kind of creeped the shit out of me. And the reason being is, as a child, when we moved into this one house, I used to see orbs flying all around me when I was a kid, and it would be in daylight too. And I never really thought much of it. I don't know, you're 4 years old, you don't really think about these things. And that went on for a while, and I don't know why I really didn't process it. And, you know, the weird thing is the scene in the Ghostbusters where the containment unit blows up and all the lights are in the sky. It looked like miniature versions of those. And the photographs taken by the Entity team did photograph exactly that, moving in the same kind of pattern that I would see, which really weirded me out. The other one was, they said that the most impressive thing they saw, where I was unable to photograph, was, I forget exactly, but the woman was having a complete freak out. And at one point, something fell over, and they look over, and there's kind of this undulating, okay, phosphenes. Do you know when you close your eyes and you press your fingers down and you get all these weird lights?
Oh, yeah.
They described it as kind of looking like that. And that's kind of what I remember too, what I saw. This kind of sizzling colors of phosphenes forming the shape of a face, a pair of arms, and a torso. Now, when I was living at this house, by the time I was in freshman year of high school, I had seen so much of this shit, I just figured my brain was broken and I just ignored it. I just didn't care anymore. And the most vivid thing I recall is, you know, being in the hallway, looking over and seeing essentially a torso, a pair of hands, and a screaming face lunge towards me. And I'm like, wow, I must be messed up. I didn't react. But it looked like what they described, which really, really weirded me out after the fact. In that house, I used to see moving shadows. This was primarily in elementary school. I remember once I had woken up in the morning and looked up at a wall, and like there was a shadow of like a person next to me, and then it just kind of sunk away and there was no one there. Also at night, sometimes I'd see like weird little shapes moving from room to room. it was, I saw some strange ones. The other two that were most extreme, I think, was at one point, and this is different because it didn't look like photophosphenes at all, was I once woke up and saw the shape of an apparition of a dog in front of me. It was a kind of a dachshund, and it was photorealistic. It wasn't like weird and blurred or sizzling. It was photorealistic and like glass. I moved my hand through it for a few times before it disappeared, but it didn't move. It was like frozen there. That was so damn weird. That was one of the weirdest damn things I ever saw. The other being that twice I saw what looked to be full body apparitions of my sister walking around the house. Once I just figured she was sleepwalking because she did that. I sleepwalked too. The second time, when I got up in the morning, I realized she wasn't there. She was staying the night at a friend's house. That was pretty strange. There were a few other times that I saw weird apparition bodies. Only once did I see it out of that house. And I was at my grandparents' house. And that was when I just decided it must be in my head, because I woke the person up next to me and they couldn't see it. So I walked over to put my hand through it and it disappeared. So, I mean, I can't really say, I don't have any grand narratives or anything like that. I mean, I suppose most of it would be talking about childhood trauma and the inability to sleep and things like that. But as far as an actual narrative of seeing something or something happening, that's about it. I mean, but it was a constant was the thing. It wasn't like every once in a while, it was a constant.
Was that house on like a ley line nexus or something? Because the way you're describing things, it almost sounds like you are intersecting with parallel realities. And I know that sounds stupid, but like the dog that you were talking about, just being there but not moving, or seeing apparitions of your sister like moving around, but she's not there. I mean, it literally sounds like at one point you were in the Twilight Zone. And I don't mean that to be mocking. I mean, like, it sounds like you had some sort of intersection between another reality, like a Mandela effect or something.
Well, according to Blavatsky, what it is it's the I guess you would call it the id of a person, the alternate side, the playful side, or the malevolent side of a person escaping when their guard is down and causing havoc on those around them, either in a playful way or in a menacing way. She had a huge chapter on that in a book
Prometheus Rising.
It wasn't Prometheus Rising. It was a different book, although this book may have taken excerpts from Prometheus Rising. But she talked at length on how some of the members of her group would, because they were all purposely putting each other into these trances, the result was that members of their group were visiting other members in their rooms at night without their permission. And so they had to, quote, take precautions against that by putting pentagrams in places and other things like that. Now, whether or not you believe that that was really happening, that phenomenon has been written about.
That's so weird. I mean, like, just I can't imagine. I've only ever seen anything once, but to see it all the time and first think you're crazy and then realize, no, that's actually paranormal. Like, it sounds so bizarre.
Well, that was the thing. I knew that I've seen weird shit before that my mind had generated. And at that point in my life, things weren't great to begin with. I just came to the acceptance it must all be in my head. And it really freaked me out when it was only like a year or two ago that I watched the documentary on the entity. And that kind of freaked me out to see that no, other people have seen this too. And the photographs is what got me, because usually when you see these photographs, like, yeah, it could be faked, but it's like, yeah, this still could be faked, but it looks identical to what I was seeing. So, and yeah, I have to admit there was something there was something wrong with that house. It was not a good place. I was happy to leave.
I know which house you're talking about. Yeah.
I was going to say, was it the house that you lived in before you left for college, or?
No, until about age 3 or 4, I lived in a very small house that my parents had as they were, young, poor hippies making their way in the world and still going to college. And then I moved to a kind of a suburban blue collar neighborhood, and that was the house where. And then after that, we moved to a even more upscale place where it was no issue, absolutely no issue at all. But that one house, and it felt bad. It just was not a pleasant place.
That's
Maybe
the
something
worst.
bad happened in there. Or like I said, and I'm not trying to be mocking or facetious, maybe it was on some sort of weird ass ley line. Like some sort of, there was like a merging of realities between the paranormal and the real world. Like it just, like the borders blurred. Because there are
Well,
places like that.
it was in Riverside.
Again, whether we're seeing actual living beings or if this is something related to more what's going on within our minds or somehow our interaction with the reality around us, who the hell knows? The interesting part is we can confirm for the most part, even if it's only in the person's head, residual hauntings happen. I mean,
well, oh wait, are you talking residuals or are you talking where it actually has a mind? Because
no, I'm talking residual hauntings where it's like you're seeing some sort of playback or the same loop over and over again.
Because that's an interesting phenomenon, because it's like there's enough evidence to say there's something there. There's not enough evidence to say definitively that is happening.
Right.
But there's enough to say it's weird. And
well, the difficult part is most of the stuff is unrepeatable, which you need to do in science.
Yeah.
Residual hauntings actually do repeat.
For those of you who don't know, a residual haunting, as opposed to hauntings you see like in The Entity or in Ghostbusters, is where a segment in time kind of replays itself at a location over and over and over again, like like somebody hitting play on a DVD or on a VHS, and
a skipping record,
or a skipping record.
For those of you who still know what those are.
And so as a result, you can kind of have repeated experiences. You can have multiple people have the same experience, and to a certain extent, you can record things. And so it's fascinating.
I think the Whaley House, it has multiple hauntings, but I do believe that the Whaley House is one of the places in the United States that does have residual hauntings.
It does. In fact, one of my favorite stories is normally I don't buy EVP, and that's where they record sounds. Normally I don't buy that.
Oh, wait, did they put a Faraday cage over it?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And what they did is they went into the courthouse of the Whaley House, and they recorded in there. And of course, they didn't hear anything when they were walking through, but when they hit the play button, you heard a weird clacking noise. And after a while, they figured out that's the sound of billiards. So they tried to recreate the sound to see, okay, is this something that can be faked? Or, is this, what could be causing that? And they couldn't recreate the sound of the billiards until somebody got the brilliant idea. Billiard balls are not made out of plastic, or at least back then they weren't. They were made out of ivory. So they found a museum that had some ivory billiard balls, and they clacked them together, and it sounded exactly the same.
That's so trippy. I love Old Town because it's one of the most haunted places in the United States. Like there are ghosts, spirits, weird paranormal stuff all over that place.
Well,
I'm surprised UCLA hasn't just like asked to be able to like shut it off and just research and not have tourists bothering them, because that would be a fantastic place to do some heavy duty paranormal research.
I'm of the mind that we have yet to prove that we're watching intelligent activity. And that is the one thing that I'll hold out on. I'll buy that we're seeing all sorts of phenomena we don't understand. We need to see proof that this is actually intelligent activity happening, deliberate and cognizant. And that's the one we have a very, very hard time proving.
So you're talking about like the more poltergeist behavior where it's deliberately going after somebody because, a poltergeist is meant to torment, or I mean, it depends on what culture. And some it's torment, some it's just plain malicious pranks.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you've got to, that's an intelligent entity because it knows what it's doing.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, the legend of the poltergeist, yes. The scientific phenomena of poltergeist, which is accepted, is that, it is when you're in a house or a location that seems to have repeated activity of things falling down, strange noises, things moving.
In our house, it's our rats.
Yeah, well, that's kind of one of the things I came to the realization. I'll get to that. But that, the legend and the scientific term are vastly different. The scientific one is just shit moves, weird things move, things are happening that defy our understanding of physics, but they're happening. And after we got rats, I suddenly realized I think a ton of ghost stories are due to rats.
Oh, just rats being rats.
Well, because they'll escape from their cage occasionally.
They can be so silent.
And we're just sitting watching TV, and then all of a sudden something randomly falls down, and then this little rat scurries away. But at first you're like, why did that fall down? So no, actually what I find fascinating is you bring up poltergeist, and I love the phenomenon of the haunted object that is believed to have some sort of spirit in it, Annabelle being the most famous one. But there are haunted dolls all across the United States, and whether you believe in them or not, I find the phenomenon of the experiences that people say that they have had with these dolls fascinating. There's one in particular, I think his name is Andrew. Andrew was found in an attic. I think it was an attic, or was it a basement? It was one of those places, but basically he was shoved in a corner somewhere, and this doll is definitely worse for wear. But supposedly, if you go into the room that they keep him in, you have to ask permission first before you can enter the room. And if you don't, things will start breaking on you within a day or two of leaving the place. You have to ask him permission to take his picture. Supposedly, people say that if they don't ask permission first, even their digital cameras or their phones won't be able to take a good picture of him. There's other phenomena that happen if basically you don't respect Andrew. Now, whether or not this is true or not, I can't say, but the fact that so many people have claimed that they've had this experience when they went and visited the doll, I find that fascinating.
I have a theory about dolls. It's probably going to sound stupid, but dolls were always meant to mimic us or other living creatures. And I'm talking even down to the most rudimentary doll. But I sometimes think that because they were meant to look like us and they look like us so much, especially, as you get to more the dolls that look like children and they look realistic, it's like you're creating a golem without a soul. So it has to absorb something. So sometimes it just absorbs all the bad shit. And that's why you get dolls that are haunted, because it wants to have some sort of life energy, but sometimes there's just negative around. And so it absorbs that and it gets pissed. Like I said, it's a dumb theory, but
Tell the story of doll funerals and why. Japan.
Oh, in Japan, yes.
The doll funerals and why.
No, it's not a dumb theory. It there's something behind it. In Japan, for centuries,
including now.
Yeah, including now. Not so much now, but definitely including now. If somebody passes away, they would have a funeral for the dolls that person owned, especially if it was a child, because they didn't want either the spirit of the dead person going into the doll or the doll creating their own identity. So, you treat it with all respect, but you have a funeral for the doll. And if you don't, there are temples all around Japan where you can donate dolls. And they're kind of creepy just on their own, because the work on these dolls is just absolutely exquisite. So they're beautiful to look at to begin with. And then the idea that some of them may have souls in them. The most famous being, I forget what the doll's name is, but supposedly her hair grows because she's got human hair made from the girl who owned her. And they keep her in a nice little shrine. They supposedly cut her hair regularly, and they tend to her, and they're all respectful, but supposedly this doll's hair grows.
That's creepy as hell, but
Well-
that doesn't shock me.
Well, the thing with the
that doesn't shock me
Japanese
at all.
culture is that dolls still kind of have an idol status in that sense. So, like,
Mhm.
for graduation, a boy or a girl may get a doll that represents, okay, this is you, symbolizing you getting a better future, or succeeding in the future. This
Mhm.
is you being happy. And there are dolls for different occasions. And if a doll is particularly attached to or loved, it's believed that that will give it a level of consciousness or life.
Kind of like the Velveteen Rabbit.
Well, it's the concept of kame.
Mhm.
So, want to read some of these bizarre comments before we get to more ghost stories?
Yeah, sure.
I was just going to say, if you guys want to see some creepy, bizarre doll stuff, you guys are only like 2 or 3 hours away from it in Tombstone. There is a store that has Victorian era dolls. They're not for sale. You can just look at them, and they're creepy as hell. Like, Chris went into that store, he went into the back, and he just looked at us and said, "Nope," and walked out. And my kid likes creepy stuff. He likes haunting stuff, but he saw those dolls and just was like, "I'm gone. Bye." Yeah. So, I mean, and like, I went back there and I was like, this is a little unsettling. I'm not very comfortable right now. So I walked around, I looked for a little bit, and I noped out. So, I mean, you guys should go and check it out. I can't remember which store it is either.
That sounds pretty
But
cool.
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's creepy cool. But after a while, you're kind of like, yeah, I think I'm done with having all these glass eyes staring at me. I'm going to leave.
Yeah, that's all sorts of nope. Let's see here. Casco, there was a weird house in my family for a while. Most of the people in my family experienced something weird. I asked them about it recently and have screenshots of their expressions, but I never did.
Interesting.
Yeah. Bar one, I hung out with edgy goth weirdos in my teens at a place called Gundola's Which Ways and Wheres, named after the owner's mother, Gunnola the Green Witch.
Interesting again.
Kind of sounds like Mama Roots in Kensington in San Diego. Mama Roots was cool. Did you ever go to Mama Roots?
I had no clue that existed, and I hung out with goth people.
Oh, Mama Roots was the voodoo store. And
I never went to it.
oh,
How
that
could I
was
not know that?
that place was cool because you could get all sorts of weird herbs in bulk, the legal kind. But when we went in, there was somebody else who walked in the door with us. This was a girlfriend of mine and I, and this other person was looking around, and he looked at the counter and saw this beautiful cup, and in the cup was a fertilized egg that had been cracked open. And he asked, "What's that for?" And the woman behind the counter said, "That's to keep you safe from what's going on upstairs."
Oh shit!
I'm sorry, I'd laugh at her. I'm not. Okay.
So anyway, but yeah, Mama Roots was great. Bar one, a residual is like a VHS tape in space time.
Okay, so I have a story about those kinds of shops.
Yeah.
That I think you might find funny.
Okay.
There were a lot of those in San Francisco. Some of them were like creepy and weird, and some of them were like fluffy and new agey, or in between. And there was a really big one downtown. I forget what it was called, but they had psychic readings and consultations there. And
Was this the offshoot of the Psychic Eye, or maybe the first one?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
Because I know they had a store in San Francisco.
But yeah, they'd have this corner in the back with, it was curtained off, and they had little booths essentially where people could go in and talk to the psychic or mystic for consultation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there and I'm standing by it. And I hear the woman, there is obviously an older woman talking to the guy that's supposed to be a psychic. And you can tell the guy has just had enough. It's, no, you don't understand. I keep trying to tell Kitty to stop scratching the couch, and he keeps pooping in the corner, and I just can't get. I think he's possessed. He's like, well.
Wow.
And you can hear that. Sometimes animals are just poor behaved. If maybe you should try disciplining him. No, because I'm scared he might get mad at me. He's such a bad kitty.
Oh my god. Then maybe Kitty shouldn't be with you.
Yeah, I think a new owner is needed.
Yeah.
Casca, have a list of various ghost stories from around the prison I worked at too. Oh, that
Holy
okay.
Shit.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
We need to get you on for that. That sounds great. And, prisons seem to be not just because of what goes on there, but prisons, especially old ones, seem to be very prone to especially residual hauntings and a certain type of other haunting. I'll get to that in a minute. Due to the fact that there's a lot of iron in the walls, and just there's a lot of presence of iron and electrical.
No, that makes sense.
The same thing with lighthouses. And there is a certain level of electromagnetic frequencies that when it hits the brain, this has been measured at Stanford, in which you start to feel things. You start to feel weird sensations like people touching you on the neck.
Mm-hmm.
You start to hear weird sounds. You start getting this paranoid feeling that someone's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
This can be triggered by apparently a certain type of electromagnetism.
No, that's true. And salt water helps that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of Alcatraz. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking of Bad Kitty. I'm sorry.
Sometimes the simplest explanations,
Yeah, just she thinks her cat's possessed. Oh God.
I think this is about the doll.
Trenton, I heard the boy's mother-in-law tried to burn it, and it showed up unharmed later, and the woman died later. For Andrew. I do know there is a story with one of the dolls. I don't think it's Andrew, but I know it's a different one. Trenton, Janelle, I think back to a line in the original Ghost in the Shell. Motoko argues that considering all that goes into a doll or toy and the attachments people have might instill their own ghost.
That is a direct reference to what we were talking about with the doll graveyard and Kame. And that line seems a little odd until you know about that aspect of the culture.
That reminds me of something to share, but...
And the name Ghost in the Shell in itself is a reference to an older philosophical concept, which was, are we merely flesh, or is there something piloting the machine?
Has anybody here heard of Doll Island in Mexico?
Yes.
That place is creepy.
Yes. And the fact that people swear that they hear the running of little feet even during the day on Doll Island. Again, regardless of what you think, it's just interesting.
Yes, but what about Cat Island?
Which one? There are several.
Oh, I thought there was only one.
No, there's actually, that's the thing. I found out that Japan's all the chains of islands, because they have so many merchant vessels that would come through there, a lot of them have a problem with feral cats taking over the islands, but all of them will label themselves as Cat Island to try to get the tourists to come to feed money into there. But there's a lot of cat islands.
Is it
And
like
it,
Death Clock's Island for Wayward Kitties? I don't know if you guys ever saw
kinda.
that episode.
Oh, forever ago. No, it's more like just they have all these different islands around Japan that are overrun with feral cats. They're sweet. They're used to humans, so they're you can walk right up and pet them. But because there are so many merchant vessels, they're coming in since actually I think since the 1600s. These places are now overrun with cats, and Japan doesn't know what to do with them. In fact, because of that, it's really hard. Besides their normal quarantine laws and other things like that, it's really hard to get a cat into Japan because they don't want the feral cat population to start overrunning Japan proper.
So I've told my ghost stories. How about one of you tell yours?
Kat,
Um,
do you want to go first, or I can go?
oh, I've got a ton, so I can either way.
Well, I've got a few. I mean, they're not really long stories. They're more like I've only played with a Ouija board twice. And so the first time I played with an Ouija board was in high school, and we literally felt the temperature in the room drop by 10 degrees. I shit you not. And we walked out of the room, shut the door, and called it a night. We did not go back in that room. The second time I played with an Ouija board, it was at my best friend's birthday party. We were in the basement of his house, and a whole bunch of weird shit happened at once, where one of my friends fainted, and at the same time another friend backed up from the Ouija board and said, "There's a Roman centurion in the corner trying to kill us." You'd think we were on hallucinogens, but none of us were. And I became so paralyzed with fear, I started crying. I could not move. Something was holding me down. And so that was the last time. Like I said, twice, 2 times is enough. Uh, Growing up in the house that I have moved back into, every night, nonstop, I would hear bare feet walking on the tile through the kitchen into the entryway, almost every single night. And I haven't heard it now because I'm in a different part of the house where I live, but it was like clockwork. And the house isn't haunted, or we didn't think it was, but the fact that I could hear bare feet walking through the house was a really weird experience, because I always thought maybe my dad or my mom was up, but no, I'd go check it out and there's no one there. And both my parents were just out like a light. And so, like I said, nothing bad ever happened in this house, but you could hear people walking around, or just a person. It was the oddest thing. And it was literally that sound when bare feet hits tile, that like padding
Mhm.
sound where the feet kind of stick. And I would hear it almost every single night. And I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was an appliance, but none of the appliances in the house made that kind of noise. And I heard it up until I moved out. And now that I've moved back in, I don't hear it anymore. But I just thought that was so weird, because I would be wide awake. It wouldn't be like being asleep, or like, sleep paralysis where your brain is awake, but you can't
Yeah.
move. And so it was really odd. And I asked my parents about it. Of course, they didn't hear it. But yeah, I did. It was really funky. Like, I've never experienced anything else like that. But it was clockwork too. It was always between 1 and 3 in the morning. I'd hear it.
Wow. I want to take a step back. So after the friend said there's a Roman centurion in the corner that wants to kill us,
Yes.
did you get any more details from this person? Did they talk about it later, or?
He didn't want to talk about it. He's like, "I don't want to talk about it." That was it. I mean, we literally got up from the Ouija board and left the room, because we had to slap my friend awake, because this all happened at once. This wasn't like a series of events. My friend fainted. My other friend said that he saw a Roman centurion that was like charging us, trying to kill us. And like, I couldn't move, and I was crying and freaking out. And then we had another friend who wasn't taking it seriously, which I guess from the person who was guiding us on the board, another friend, was pissing the entity off because he was saying it was all a joke and it wasn't real. So yeah, we got the hell out of there. And my best friend, who was Wiccan, went down and saged the hell out of that basement after we were done.
You know,
So yeah,
I would really like to see that done in a lab environment where you've either got EEGs hooked up or squids monitoring the brain activity.
Smudging?
No.
Oh, Ouija board?
Ouija board, yeah. To see what the brain activity is when they're doing that. Because I'm kind of wondering if you do enter a different state of consciousness. I mean, it's like stereo hallucinations. I really think that needs to be studied more because that occurs.
are you talking about audio hallucinations?
Oh,
Is that
no.
oh.
I guess it has a different name now. It's I always heard LSD users talk about it, where they'd all have the same hallucination.
I've taken a lot of acid and I've never had the same hallucination as everybody. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe I just wasn't on the same wavelength as my friends. I was too busy thinking I was in a video game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, actually it was.
Okay,
Not gonna
so
lie.
we're talking 90s video games. So what, like Tomb Raider?
No, more like Street Fighter.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
There you go.
Yeah,
What?
like we would play fight. I think that's why I thought I was in a video game, is because we were like wrestling around and acting like complete morons on acid.
Geez, if LSD had done that for me, I might have liked it.
Maybe you got
No.
the bad stuff, because I never had a bad time on LSD. I mean, I went and saw Tool for the first time, like fried out of my mind, and got to meet Maynard. It was most amazing experiences of my life.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I never had the what you're talking about, the joint hallucination, the group
Where everyone
hallucination.
sees the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, and I wanted to. That would have been amazing.
Well, it's fascinating because we're kind of DMT research seems to be showing that as well. But anyway, Kat, do you want to share yours?
Sure, I can share mine.
I mean, we're 47 minutes in and you haven't told the story yet.
Okay, I can tell my stories. This is now keep in mind, Ghostbusters is one of, if not my absolute all-time favorite movies. I have been fascinated with the ghosts literally forever, because it came out in 84 and I was born in 82. So it's been a part of my life forever. As I've mentioned before on previous casts, the house that I grew up in was believed to be haunted. Specifically, that the epicenter of the haunting, just like in Poltergeist, was in my closet. Hooray.
Shit.
I was always afraid of my closet. If the doors were open and the lights were off, there is no way in fucking hell I'd go in there. I'd be scared to just put my hand in the room to turn the light on. If the doors were open, I would not go to bed and those lights would not come, would not be turned off. I was that scared of the closet. In that house, I have experienced where I was wide awake and voices of other people were talking to me, were calling my name, beckoning me, specifically to the closet. I have heard that. I have heard phantom people walking around. This house was built in the 20s, so you would hear them, walk on the hardwood floors. And there we go. And my room was always 15 degrees colder than the rest of the house. I can remember very distinctly it being July in Inglewood, California, and it was really nice and summery outside, and you could see your breath in my bedroom. Finally, when we were trying to move, for a year and a half, the house wasn't selling. And my mom had a friend of hers come in who said her friend was actually a Buddhist nun, and she said, "Your house doesn't want you to move." So they spent an entire weekend smudging and clearing the house. Didn't make the thing go away, but within a month we moved. The house sold. Whether or not you believe that something was keeping us or not, doesn't matter. Weird shit happened. My experience with a Ouija board. I mentioned previously that I was at a slumber party with about 10 other girls, and we were watching The Gate with all the lights off and absolutely no adults in the place. And we were asking questions of the board, and we asked the board, prove to us that you are real and it's not just us moving it around. So the planchette spun to point at a wall. And I'm with you, Janelle. We were not making it up. We were not hallucinating. There was a vase that was on the piano on that wall, and that vase was floating about 10 inches above the piano, and then it floated about 2 feet away from the piano towards us, and then went back.
Yeah, no, like I will never mess with an Ouija board again. That shit, no. I don't care what anybody says. People can think that I, am paranoid. Like,
Yeah. And that was actually the first and last time. Actually, I quit playing with it. That actually didn't cause me to quit. What caused me to quit playing with it was I said, okay, let's do another test. My mother's boyfriend's grandfather was sick in the hospital at that time. And I asked the Ouija board, will he still be alive tomorrow? And the board said no. And so the first thing I did in the morning when I asked, when my mom came to pick me up, was I asked, is he doing okay? And she said, no, he passed last night.
That's creepy as fuck.
Fuck that shit. Oh my God. Yeah. Kids out there listening, don't play with Ouija boards.
Yeah,
just
don't.
Don't. Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Last but not least, and again, I don't know, as an adult now that I'm nearly 40, I don't know what this is. I just know what I experienced. And that was in high school. I had 2 friends, and we did not play with Ouija boards, but we were heavily into pendulums for asking questions and things like that. We did tarot as well, but tarot is different. But we had pendulums, and we had invited spirits to make their homes in our pendulums, so that they weren't just crystals, they would actually have a spirit in them. And one of us, it wasn't me, but one of us said that hers started getting mean and started attacking her. And
how does a pendulum attack you?
She would wake up in the middle of the night with scratches, and her cats were not in the room.
You can have sympathetic scratches.
I know.
Which friend was this?
Rose, actually.
Okay.
So
that's what I thought.
So it was actually kind of creeping us out. And for the other 2 of us, if we held her pendulum, could be hallucination. Maybe it was real. I don't know. The damn thing felt hot. Like hotter than it could be sitting in the box that she had it in, not being touched, and you picked it up and it felt warmer than body temperature. So we went up to Lakeview Park in Scripps Ranch, and yes, I totally recognize what I'm about to share. We made a bonfire up there. We really shouldn't have done that because it was highly illegal.
And you were responsible for the San Diego fire.
We weren't. Well, no, we weren't. Actually, we were. All of us had been former Girl Scouts. We knew how to set fires properly. We took proper precautions. But still, the area that we were at was not zoned for it. We went up there because it was overlooking the lake. And we spent about 2 hours doing a cleansing ritual and a binding ritual. And then we trotted down to the lake at night and chucked the thing into the water. And that seemed to make it better. So I don't know, made the rest of us feel better. She stopped having scratches.
And then all the fish died in the lake.
Well, no, she for the next month couldn't walk past that part of the lake.
Oh.
So she said that she felt weird walking past it.
Well, as far as pendulums are concerned, I can explain some of that.
Oh, how pendulums work?
Yeah.
Oh, I know the science behind how pendulums work, but
it's actually subconscious. You can train your mind where you think you're seriously.
Yeah. No, and actually, once I read that, I started experimenting with it and realized that's what was going on.
It's micro movements in the fingers that you're subconsciously doing.
It's why you should not do Ouija boards alone because, well, if you're susceptible to ways of thinking, you're going to think that, oh, something's talking through you. But really, that's what's happening is your hand's movement. You need to have somebody else there to offset the way your hand is moving.
Well, I can... Should I tell my Ouija board story again?
Sure.
It was a party at my house, and we had all the goths at the house, and we were all doing goth things, listening to Bauhaus and, drinking soda.
Not that filthy soda.
Yeah.
You and that Devil's Brew Fanta.
Right. It's... you have kids on the couch macking and all the other stuff that you'd figure at a typical teenage party. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember who got the Ouija board out, but somebody got a Ouija board out. So you've got to picture the living room full of teens. And, there's a couple on the couch just macking, the stereo's going. And you got three people in the center just going at it with the Ouija board trying to go, who am I talking to? Right. And there was one guy there named Brad, and I have tons of Brad stories because Brad was crazy. And they were sitting there doing it. Like,
always Brad.
It was Brad. It was like, have we contacted anyone? Said, yes. Oh my God. And are you? They're asking different questions, and it kept giving weird answers. Are you dead? What do you think, asshole? Right. And later I have friends like, I can't believe they totally believed it. I was moving it around. He was like, he told me to suck his dick. And later, I don't know, Brad asked if he was going to die. And Brad did a lot of acid. He ran out of the house screaming. Where'd Brad go? Teenagers don't really think a lot of things through. Brad went screaming out of the house. I'm sure he'll be back. Apparently he went to this field near the neighborhood, just was running around screaming, why God, why?
Jesus.
We're like, okay.
Wow.
Dude, oh God, acid can make you do stupid shit.
Well, Brad was also,
I was gonna say I have an actual off-topic acid story if you guys want to hear it.
Oh, sure, why not?
Okay, so my friend, the same friend that had the party with the Ouija board, this was about maybe 5 years later. He's watching his parents' house, so he throws a party, and a bunch of our friends show up on acid. Well, one of them just kept creeping around the house, and we're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then he picks up the cat and he holds the cat to him, and you think it's a shield, and he goes and he stands behind a house plant, and we're like, hey Johnny, what are you doing? It's like, I'm trying to kill the Viet Cong. We're like, what? He's like, I'm hiding in the bush trying to kill the Viet Cong. We're like, well, why are you holding the cat then? He's like, oh, no, this is my AK-47 so I can kill them.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus, dude. We all
AK-47?
AK-47, exactly.
But I've got pictures of him hiding behind a house plant holding the fucking cat, thinking that he's in the Vietnam War.
Wow.
You've got to share these photos. Do you have a photo of the dude who always pissed everywhere?
Yes. I've got so many.
Wow.
I need to hide them. Like, Chris is at the age now where he's gonna want to look at those photos. I'm like, oh shit, I don't need you to see mom and dad when we were degenerates.
Wow. At least not now. Wait till you're older.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's my sidetrack acid story. That wasn't me. That was somebody else. I think it was, it was New Year's Eve. It was New Year's Eve 2003 is when that happened. One hell of a night. Just we watched Johnny
Wow.
play out the Vietnam War in the living room
With a cat.
cat. He did not let go of that cat all night. That cat kept trying to get away. He was
Oh.
just
What his
like,
arms look like by the end of it.
oh, they were fucked up. And what's
Jesus.
so funny is like 2 months later, he went and joined the army.
Really?
Yes.
That was back when if you'd done acid, they wouldn't let you in. I guess he lied.
Yeah. Oh, he had to have lied because he did so many drugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Riverside, acid seemed to be one of the drugs of choice for goths. It was acid and cloves. It was never weed. And I had certain friends who hated school so much that they often showed up to school just on acid. And apparently there was one where I wasn't there for this, but she claimed that in a class, she kept flipping out because she swore that there was a naked stripper cowboy wearing nothing but boots and a hat, dancing and gyrating in the front of the classroom.
And that's a bad thing?
No, she just said it was impossible to get through the class.
I'm laughing because I had friends that would do acid in high school, and it's like the weirdest shit would happen where they'd just be like staring off into space, but with this like look of shock and awe, and you're like, what the hell are they seeing right now?
Wow.
I never asked because I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole or cause a bad trip, but you could just see like the head kind of cocks and the eyes get a little wide and glassy, and you're like, oh, they're seeing something good.
Wow. So should we call it a night?
Sure, unless does anybody in chat have any other stories before we go?
Did you see any, Kat?
I did not, but that doesn't mean they weren't there.
Okay, we'll scroll up and here, scan through them real quick.
I am going to say, you got to get Casca on. I want to hear those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Casca sounds like she's had an interesting life. She was a prison guard.
Yeah.
She also probably can kick ass.
I saw one.
Okay.
Let's see. Trenton, next time we have dinner with my brother's family, you should ask him about the time he nearly turned into a 411 case. Plus, he investigated one in Sholo. Guy vanished into thin hair. Oh,
holy crap.
Okay, yeah, that's creepy. Yeah, that's totally creepy. Somebody posted something. Maybe I can find it. Maybe it's gone. Maybe it wasn't there to begin with.
Now, I just find it interesting when where Trenton lives, and he keeps saying that, yeah, people around there see the flying V sometimes. There's sightings.
There it is. Trenton, I've had a friend see something while we were walking up the stairs at his house. I got to the top and turned and found him at the bottom scared. He had a vision of somewhere else and came back. Oh, weird.
Oh.
I had a friend have a similar experience, but there's an explanation. Again, high school. Friend shows up completely high on hash. Decides he's smoked out hash. He was in his car. He figured he better come to my place before he got too messed up. And we're sitting there, we're just hanging out in the room, and he's babbling, and then he just freezes. And his eyes get huge. I go, what? What's going on? He's just frozen there. He snaps out of his, dude, for a minute, that wall over there went on forever.
He had a liminal space moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
But now we're getting into Gen X behaving badly territory. So that's for a different kind of night.
Oh, dude, I have some great stories about being on acid and mushrooms and the conversations we'd have.
We can do a night like that. Those are
Okay.
always fun. Casca, if people can deal with my monotone and my California accent, I don't really see an issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I sound like a California dude girl. You know, I mean,
Not gonna lie, you kind of do.
yeah, that's how I always have sounded, though. It probably didn't help that, you know, I was on the swim team and I was a jock too. So I got the whoa, bro, what's up? Down.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this special show, where we were going to talk about true tales of the paranormal. And
yes, tonight was fun.
Oh, good.
Maybe we can do another night of bizarre stories and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
if
definitely.
we can think
I'm
of something.
down.
You've got more, don't you?
I've got
Me?
some more. Yeah.
Oh,
Kat.
I've got a couple of more. I haven't had much bizarre stuff happen to me. I've just seen a lot of people fucked up on drugs do weird shit. That's the bizarre stories I have. Or I did the fucked up shit while on drugs. Or my husband did. Yeah, I've got stories like that.
All right. Well, before we go, one more time, I'm going to promote that we have a new channel, and I encourage everyone to go subscribe to it. It is called Wordcraft. It is going to be primarily the industry stuff we do. We're going to talk about book reviews,
talking shop,
talking about things in the industry, just things that are interesting, but it's all related to being writers or to comics and books, and just that's the focus. It's the more serious stuff we cover. All the screwed up shit will stay here. Because this channel's already been censored to hell. There's nothing more they can do other than just take the channel down.
And then we just bounce on over to the other channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, if this channel gets killed, I will actually start a separate all-new channel where it's just us talking about bizarre things. It'll be the the Rated R channel. All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining, and take care.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.